Imagine a technology inside Bitcoin that started as an experimental idea, was dismissed as a short-term trend, triggered outrage across the community, and then quietly returned stronger than ever, shaping the future of Bitcoin in ways nobody predicted. That's exactly what's happening right now with the new Bitcoin Ordinals standards and the latest Inscriptions upgrade buzz that is rapidly gaining momentum. For most casual investors, Ordinals were just a temporary hype cycle. But behind the scenes, developers, collectors, miners, and even institutional analysts are realizing something different. Bitcoin is evolving, not in its supply or monetary policy, but in how it is used, how value is stored, and how data interacts with the blockchain. To understand why this moment matters, you need to look back at how Ordinals began. When Inscriptions first appeared, they introduced the ability to attach digital content directly onto individual Satoshis, Bitcoin's smallest unit. Suddenly, people could mint NFTs on Bitcoin for the first time without changing the protocol or adding smart contracts. It caused excitement, confusion, and controversy all at once. Bitcoin purists argued that inscriptions were clogging the network. NFT collectors saw it as historic. Miners saw record-breaking fee revenue that rewarded them during low reward periods. And through all of that noise, one thing became clear. Bitcoin was no longer just a store of value. It had quietly become programmable in a new way. Fast forward to now, and the narrative has shifted from experimentation to infrastructure. The new Bitcoin Ordinal standards being developed are not just tweaking the system, they are transforming how inscriptions function. These upgrades aim to improve indexing, reduce data footprint, increase efficiency, and allow new types of digital assets to exist on Bitcoin. What started with BRC20 tokens was only the beginning. Developers are now proposing expanded formats that could support more complex assets, metadata-rich inscriptions, and new transaction structures that make minting, transferring, and verifying digital content faster and more scalable. But here's where things get even more interesting. The recent Inscriptions upgrade buzz isn't driven only by developers. It's being driven by market behavior. After months of decline, inscription activity is rising again. Marketplace volume has surged. Trading floors that were practically silent are seeing new mints every week. Collectors who previously ignored Bitcoin NFTs are returning because they believe the new standards could become historically significant. And miners are watching closely because whenever inscription demand rises, Bitcoin network fees increase, which boosts miner revenue and strengthens network security. This is why analysts are calling it the new BRC20 revival. But the difference this time is maturity. Instead of random meme inscriptions, we are seeing curated collections, utility-driven standards, and ecosystem development. Wallets now support ordinals more smoothly, indexes are faster, marketplaces have become more organized, infrastructure has caught up to demand. And that sets the stage for the next phase, where inscriptions shift from trend to long-term asset class. Now let's talk about why inscriptions matter to Bitcoin in the first place. Bitcoin was always designed to be minimal, secure, and dependable. It was never meant to support complex applications. But inscriptions provide a new layer of functionality without altering Bitcoin's monetary principles. The supply remains fixed. The issuance schedule remains untouched. The base protocol remains unchanged. Yet Bitcoin gains new demand, new users, and new utility. That is extremely rare in blockchain history. Most ecosystems need major upgrades to evolve. Bitcoin is evolving simply through new standards being layered on top of Satoshis. But this transformation doesn't come without tension. Every time the inscriptions trend returns, fees rise. When fees rise, the network becomes more expensive for regular transactions. Critics argue that inscriptions spam the blockchain and threaten Bitcoin's primary purpose. Supporters argue the opposite, that Bitcoin's security depends on fee revenue and inscriptions provide that revenue long after block rewards decline. The mining community has already experienced periods where inscriptions generated more income than standard transaction fees. As the halving reduces block rewards further, the question becomes unavoidable. How will miners stay profitable without new sources of demand? This is why the inscriptions upgrade buzz matters at a deeper level. Bitcoin's long-term security depends on transaction fees replacing block subsidies. If inscriptions generate sustained demand for block space, they may become a critical part of Bitcoin's economic future. Not because users love digital collectibles, but because miners need fee-driven incentives as block rewards shrink. Many people don't realize this yet. They see inscriptions as a cultural movement instead of an economic stabilizer. Now let's look at the timeline. Why this moment is happening now instead of a year ago. First, developer tooling has caught up. The indexing issues that caused chaos early on are being solved. Second, standards are being formalized, which reduces fragmentation. Third, cross-chain marketplaces are integrating Bitcoin-based assets, bringing exposure from non-Bitcoin ecosystems. Fourth, major collectors are accumulating early inscriptions based on historical significance, not hype cycles. And fifth, the Bitcoin community is slowly shifting from rejection to acceptance. Not from agreement, but from inevitability. But here's the twist that most investors are overlooking. The next phase of inscriptions may have nothing to do with NFTs. Developers are exploring data anchoring, decentralized identity, timestamping, and lightweight metadata layers that use inscriptions for verification rather than collectibles. That means the new ordinal standards could support utilities far beyond art, record storage, authentication, proof systems, and enterprise use cases. Bitcoin may become the settlement layer not just for financial value, but for immutable data integrity. At the same time, competition is rising. Layer 2 Bitcoin solutions, sidechains, and roll-up proposals are emerging to offload inscription demand from mainnet. If these solutions succeed, inscriptions could scale without congesting the base chain. That would unlock a future where Bitcoin maintains its security while expanding its utility, something many thought was impossible. As we approach the conclusion, here's what most people haven't realized yet. The return of inscriptions isn't an accident. It's a signal. Every time inscriptions surge, it reveals how much demand exists for Bitcoin beyond simple price speculation. The new Bitcoin Ordinals standards are not about turning Bitcoin into Ethereum. They are about unlocking new value without compromising what makes Bitcoin unique. And the investors who understand this shift early may position themselves ahead of a narrative that could define the next chapter of Bitcoin's evolution. Thank you for watching. Stay ahead of the noise, and I'll see you in the next video.